Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll.
It's not that, no big deal.
Make sure everybody on your end
Just
has
looking,
has microphones muted. I can hear some background noise. Thank you, folks.
Okay,
And
while
while
this is taking a minute to upload here, I'll just give you some background. I do need to make a little bit of a correction. Yes, I was the operating group safety director for Mortenson for quite a few years. I am now into operations and specifically a certain project up here in Everett, Washington. It's the Kaiser Permanente project. So I'm supporting safety, quality, and continuous improvement. I'm working part-time. I'm trying to figure out this retirement thing. But my history is I started out in the trades as a laborer. I've been with Mortenson going on 45 years. I senior superintendent. One of my last projects was the group health, which is now Kaiser on Northeast 8th and Bellevue. And about 20 years or so, I got into operations. Safety director. At that time, our company started looking at a lot of continuous improvement processes, lean, as we referred to it. And so I helped support that from an operating group and as a company standpoint. And like I said, today I'm solely on a project supporting safety, quality, and efficiency. So today we're gonna talk about our journey at Mortenson in regards to our 5S, and I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. So my first question is the PowerPoint is loaded? Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Nope. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of yeses. So that's a good thing, I suppose. All right, let me first, I got some advice this morning I want to share with everybody. So somebody told me one time not to take a laxative and a sleeping pill at the same time. So I don't know, just saying, probably doesn't work so good. I did that at a seminar one time and somebody in the background raised their hand and I'm like, what question could possibly come out of that statement? And I said, so I was curious now and I just, hey, what you got? You know, and he said, so does it matter what order you take it in? And I just stopped right there. So anyway, take it or leave it. All right. So you're gonna, let's see, I got to get rid of this thing here. Recording has started. All right. So let me just
don't worry about that, Lyle. I'm just recording the presentation.
Got it. Okay. Let me just put into context our journey. So a few years back, Mortenson as an operating group and as a company decided, we have to do things differently when it comes to how we keep our jobs clean and organized. And as an industry and as an operating, we just have allowed too many bad habits, and we had to change because it doesn't allow for a safe job, a good quality job, and certainly it doesn't allow for efficiency. So what we did was we went out and we did some benchmarking back in the day, and we did some benchmarking with Boeing, Virginia Masons, Children's, Genie, Electric Boat. Got to meet some of the folks from Toyota, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And once we gathered this information, we came back and we said, okay, how can this apply to construction? And so I'll tell you folks, so what you're going to see today is predominantly construction orientated, but I will have to say that this process started out with Toyota in the automobile industry many years ago. It migrated into manufacturing. It migrated into healthcare, and now it's in construction. And it's based off of a program called 5S, and I'll get more in detail on that as well, on what 5S is, and then how we've taken it and added what we call our absolutes, put a little more meat on the bones in context of what we would expect when coming on a Mortenson project. Now, certainly, anytime we're looking to change an operating group or change an industry for that matter, it's turning a Titanic around. And I like to use the word rigor because it's like a bulldog on a pork chop. You just can't let go. And if you're going to change culture and so many bad habits that we've introduced into our construction industry, and I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but we have, and we have to change, and we have to produce a better product. I like the morale part of it, which I'll talk to you about here in a minute. So enough of the history. If you have any questions, just ask me along the way. I'm not one to wait till the end and take questions because I think we lose the luster of the moment. So just jump in if you need to, and we can go from there. So I said 5S. We call it impressively clean. We use the word housekeeping, and what I like to say, this is not about a broom and a shovel. This is way more, and we'll talk about that. But with anything, we have to have fun. And that's kind of the foundation of successful processes being implemented is people got to have fun, and they have to be able to identify with it. So the PowerPoint today that you're going to see, the pictures you're going to see are actual construction pictures of projects that people see, and then we can talk to them. So if when you're trained to this program here at the Kaiser Permanente project, and I'll just focus on that, we will recognize you as an individual or as a team. And we have a banner made up, and it's called Impressively Clean Champs. And we get a picture. We hang out some swag where it says 5S equals 6S. Give them, now we can actually do lunches again. So we provide them with lunch and build that camaraderie and along the way. So that's kind of our recognition side of it. So let me get into what it is that we're doing here. So 5S, like I said, this is a program that started out many years ago, 40, 50, 60 years ago, with Toyota. And this is what they used, these 5S program steps, to keep their factories and assembly lines clean and organized. And it's sort, straighten, sweep, standardize, and sustain. So if I were to ask you, which is the hardest one to do, most people would say it's the fifth one. It's the sustain part of it, where we train and we break it out and then do it rigorously every single day. And we don't give up. Similar to safety, we don't give up. We've all seen the advancements of how we can have a safe project, but that's not by just training. That's by going out, boots on the ground, and delivering what we say we're going to do. This is the same thing. We have to train folks, unnormalize, if that's a word, what we've normalized in our construction industry. And if I were today to just stop right now and say, here, this is our program, you might remember sweep, right? But this is way more than a broom and a shovel, and we'll talk about how we've identified that in our 8 absolutes. On the left-hand side of that point, there's 5 bullet points, and those are the value that you get from administering these principles. The one that I like the best is the last one, and that's better morale. When a craft worker can come on a project, or anybody for that matter, and it's clean, it's organized, we've identified clear walkways and access areas, no cords on the ground, things are picked up, people are going to be way more efficient, and they're not going to allow that to be them that makes these areas unorganized and clean. So there's a little peer pressure that goes with this as well. And so better morale. And if you can establish that, you're going to get better working conditions. You're going to reduce effort on non-value added activities, you're going to have better material flow, and you're going to be more productive, produce better quality. So that's the premises of what the 5S program is. Now, we here at Mortenson, particularly Kaiser, said, well, that's great, but we got to put some more meat on the bones, and we have to make it a little more tangible for people to understand what we're talking about. So we did that, and we came up with what we call impressively clean absolutes. And so you can see those 8 right there, and we'll talk about each one here in a minute. But no trash hits the ground, just-in-time deliveries, everything on wheels, cord management, clear walkways and access, organized workspaces, yard area readiness, and expectations and accountability. And that last one is we can't hold people accountable if we don't lay out the playing field or what the expectations are. And then every single day, you have to demonstrate and coach and train and speak to these absolutes to keep it fresh, keep it moving forward. Have those coaching moments where something isn't right. And I like to look at it like this. You know, people think the word failure is bad, and if we go out on a project, and I'll just use Kaiser. I mean, we're gonna go and you're gonna turn the corner and you're gonna go, wow, that's impressively clean, and then you're gonna go turn 180 degrees the other way and you're gonna go, what the heck just happened there? Those are all coaching moments, and it's not failure. We just haven't got there yet. And so there's the 5 whys. You know, you got to ask yourself, okay, why is this area like this? And then why is that area like that? And just go through the 5 why process. And it's a pretty simple root cause analysis that you'll get to the kind of the root cause of things pretty quickly. But we have to demonstrate that. It's just like coaching. One day we can block and tackle, the next day we can't do anything. And so we have to, you know, sharpen the fundamentals. So those are our absolutes. So let's get into each one of them. So the first one, no trash hits the ground. So unfortunately, most people would walk by this and go, well, what's wrong with that? I mean, I can get from point A to point B. Yeah, I have to walk around a couple 2x4s and maybe a trash pile, which we'll talk about that. But, you know, that's good. I can get there. There's so much wrong with this picture. In our industry, in the construction industry, and I'll say it like this, if you were to see that, that should just make you sick, because there's so much wrong with that. I look at a full tippler, and I said earlier, this is not about a broom and a shovel. I look at a full tippler not being emptied. That tells me there's probably not a waste management program. How are we getting our tipplers to and from these work areas? When do we dump them? Who provides the larger dumpsters, the 20 yards, the 30 yards, and what's the cadence on getting those dumped? If we provide these types of tools, they will be used. If not, you can see what happens. So secondly, there was more than likely not a cut station built up. So how many times have you been on a construction project and you'll see somebody on their hands and knees with a chop saw cutting something, or a bunk of 2x4s and they're ripping chunks of 2x4s, right? We want a cut station, and I'll show that to you here in a minute, but we want a cut station where first of all, it's ergonomically correct. You're up in the air, you're not on the ground. But when you cut that piece of material, it falls into a tippler or a wheelbarrow or a bucket. I don't care. We call that one touch. One touch is you simply touch something and you let it go and you never have to touch it again. But what happens in our industry is we go to work, we go to a work area, and if we start cutting 2x4s or conduit or rebar, it goes in this pile. About an hour or 2 into the shift, foreman comes and says, hey, we got to go. We got to go over here. And we may never get back there to clean up our area. If we would have had a proper process on catching that garbage, we wouldn't have to worry so much about it. But here's what happens. So that pile on the left over there, that big pile, you see plastic and 2x4s and all that kind of stuff. I call those chia pet piles. Everybody know what a chia pet is, right? You water it and it grows. I saw a Willie Nelson one the other day. I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, these chia pet piles, that pile right there, and I monitored this for a couple of days, started out with a single 2x4 on the bottom, just like you see on the right. I came back the next day, and now there's plywood, and there's plastic, and there's conduit, and there's rebar. And oh, by the way, I probably can't see it very well, but on the lower left there's a pair of gloves. Somebody decided they didn't like their gloves and they just threw it on the pile. Well, the problem with that is now it becomes that nobody contractor pile and nobody cleans it up. Well, being in the role that I am becomes my problem. And guess what? It's not going to be my problem. So we will bring everybody to that area and huddle up, have a coaching moment and say, this is not acceptable. And what do we got to do to make it acceptable? Bottom line is a waste management program, eliminate piles of trash through that. The banter of no trash hits the ground. So a couple more examples. On the left side there was a design change in this slab on deck at the last project I was on. And a certain trade had to go in and remove a corner of that slab. So they went in and they cut the reinforcing out and threw it on the ground. And oh, by the way, on the other side of that 2x4, that was the main walkway and access area to get to certain areas. So I gathered the superintendent and the foreman. And I walked over and I said, how come you didn't clean this up? You know what he told me? He said, it's not my job. And I got it. I get it. Certain trades would say that because we've allowed that. Certain trades will say, that's not my job. That's a laborer's job. Coaching moment number 2. Today, it's not a laborer's job. It's everybody's job. It's part of our task. The part of the task is at the end of the day, you clean up, or halfway through the day or whatever it takes, you clean up your mess. Right? This is called condition of satisfaction. And this is respect for other trades. And so breaking that stigma of it's not my job is what we're working towards. It's everybody's job. The funny thing about this is this was a change order. This certain trade partner got paid to take it out. They got paid to put it back, and they would have gotten paid to clean it up. But because they've had the mentality, it's not my job, well, that part of it didn't happen. So they missed out on an opportunity. The last picture I want to show you here is another chia pet pile. So this started out with a single pallet. And we're going to talk about pallets here in a minute. Next day I come by and there's these white bags. I hate these white bags. Reason is they work too darn good. Now these bags are identified when they come on the trailer, and there's usually reinforcing accessory pieces in there. Single use only, meaning that when that material or that product comes out of that bag goes away. But no, we keep those bags and then we lay them on the ground and it becomes another chia pet pile. Reinforcing, concrete, water bottles, whatever the case may be. It's added to that, but nobody cleans it up because it's that nobody's contractor pile again. Here's a good one. So you see that 24-foot aluminum plank on there? How does that happen? Is somebody just like walking along with a 24-foot aluminum plank and throws it on the trash pile? I guess so. Now, keep in mind, we got no space, no place, no time, no money. But we can do this all day long and create safety issues, quality issues, and efficiency issues. No trash hits the ground. All right, the second one is just-in-time deliveries. Now, I need to probably explain this one a little bit. So what you see there is not just-in-time deliveries. What you see there is just a bunch of stuff that was brought to the job well ahead of scheduled time and thrown in a corner of the project. Now, if I was that mechanical contractor, I'd be pretty upset with the electrical contractor because I can't get my stuff. And oh, by the way, because not everything's on wheels, which we'll talk about here in a minute, I've got to figure out somehow to get my material out of there. Well, I'll go talk to the electrical contractor. Okay, could you move your stuff so I can get my pipe? Oh, yeah. 2 hours later, here comes the individual. Oh, I'm here to move my stuff. Remember, we got no space, no place, no time, no money, but we can do this all day long. So here's what we say. Just in time deliveries. Now, what does that really mean? Does that mean a day's worth of material? Does that mean a week's worth of material? It all depends on the workflow of the project. So most construction projects have various forms of scheduling meetings, and some call it different than others. In those meetings, a workflow and a material flow is established for work to complete. Here's what happens. And let's just assume that coordination meeting is on a Thursday. Everybody comes in, they set the schedule for the following week, and everybody leaves the meeting knowing that come next Tuesday, I have to produce a product. So on that Friday, that trade partner is going to make a call to his supplier or his supply chain or vendor and said, hey, next Tuesday, I got to put some material in here. Can you deliver me this material? Yep, I'll be there on Monday afternoon for you to deliver on Tuesday. Great. Now, they're all smart cats. And come Friday afternoon, maybe even Monday morning, you know what? I'm out there and I just know that this is not going to happen. This scope of work that was scheduled to go Tuesday is not going to happen. So here's what happens. And it's not going to happen for another 3 weeks because there was an issue, a design change or whatever. So we made the call to bring the material, but what we don't do is make that same call to stop the material coming to our job site. We gotta stop preventing our construction projects to be storage yards and warehouses. We pay too costly of a price to store material. Now, I get it. Back in the day, or even in some cases today, as soon as that material hits the job, they get paid for it. So what I do is I'll go around when material comes and the trade partner says, I gotta have it. I said, okay, get it. I'll put a little yellow sticker on there with a date. And then I'll come back 2 months later and still there. And we'll say, had to have it, huh? Well, yeah. So then there's all kinds of excuses. So the other thing is lead time. Now I know lead time for material is tough these days. And I get it. Get your material. I don't care. Go buy it. Just don't bring it to my job. Go get a warehouse. Go get a storage yard. Now, this isn't something that can happen when the project is being built. This is in pre-construction. This is in estimating. This is having conversations with our trade partners. This is understanding workflow early on in what I'll call design or pre-con, how we're going to create workflow for the project. Because once we get to this point, it's pretty hard to control. And so we have to work back in the system to make that happen. So just in time deliveries. This is what it should look like. Should be organized. The material that is brought just for a scope of work or a zone of work to complete it within a sufficient amount of time. This is a mechanical contractor bringing, these are mechanical contractors that are bringing in material for duct work. They're kitted out just for a certain zone, not for the whole project, but just for a certain zone. And oh, by the way, it's on wheels, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And it's got pockets for forklifts. Same thing with the insulator here. This is the material just enough for a certain zone. And it's on wheels so we can move it as needed. And we'll talk more about that. So everything on wheels. So when we first started this, we had a heck of a time getting these types of totes on wheels because they just didn't exist. Yeah, you could go down to Home Depot and you could get some sheetrock carts and you could make your own if that was the case. And then depending on the phase of project, you know, these types of carts and totes don't work because you're in the dirt and mud and all that kind of stuff. So there's some different opportunities there. But certainly when you're going like at Kaiser here, we're going vertical now. We've got all our slabs and our decks placed and we got concrete. These are very accessible and very easy to use. You can kit them out with just the material that you need for certain areas. You can bring them on a truck, Tommy lift goes down, material gets rolled out, and it's in place. And if somebody has to move them, you can just simply push the cart out of the way. These are all ergonomic. A lot of these are ergonomically correct. They've got cabinet style doors. You just slip the door down, pull your material out, and away you go. So pallets. Let's talk about pallets. I don't like pallets. We have tried various ways to manage pallets on projects. And I've actually gone to supply chain and vendors and I say, hey, if we tell you you can't bring your product on a pallet, what are you going to do? Of course, they don't have answers. And then we talk about everything on wheels. So we're starting to slowly be able to transition material that comes on pallets to put them in totes and on wheels. But here's the thing with pallets. Now, the process with a pallet doesn't end when the last product is taken off the pallet. So what I train our craft to do, I said, if you're the last individual to pull something off of a pallet, your job, your task isn't done until that pallet is removed from the site. Either it's put into a designated storage area because some of these pallets our trade partners pay deposit on, and some real expensive deposits, or they don't need it anymore, so they should throw it in the dumpster. But no, they take the last product off, they just leave the pallet there, and then all of a sudden you're walking around, you see all these empty pallets. And so training our individuals and team members to remove the pallet from the project when the product is removed eliminates all these pallets on projects. We've tried various things. We've tried color coding, all that kind of stuff. And it's, you know, we can do anything we want. We just got to be prepared to manage it. And we find that minimizing our pallets, having strictly zoned areas to put pallets in if they're on a deposit, you know, like a Climate Pledge Arena, that was my last project. We had a storage area for our fireproofer. I mean, he brought in hundreds of pallets every single day, and there's no way we could get rid of them that fast. So we designated a storage area just for his pallets because he was paying deposit on those. And at the end of the week, they do a pickup, and it was a pretty good process in managing pallets. Another example of what I call kitting. This is certain ductwork for a certain area, and it's just for a certain area. So it's on a cart with wheels. If they do need a forklift or something, they have pockets, but it's just, we call it kitting. And you know, most mechanical contractors, electrical contractors are doing a really good job of bringing material on site that's kitted out. In a minute here, we're going to talk about subassembly. And here's just another example of some things on wheels. Our certain sheetrock contractor had these made. This is our fireproofer, had his material made. You just got to kind of know your product and what it is that you have to make to get these things on wheels. Here's an electric buggy that we got for our craft. They put the material in the buggy, and you know, back in the day, they would just throw it on their shoulder or whatever. Safety problems, repetitive injuries, those types of things. Now they just throw it in the buggy and away they go. All right. So everything on wheels. So I talked about subassembly. So back in the day and how to keep an impressively clean work area. So this is a riser closet for a restroom. And so back in the day, this material would come on pallets in cardboard boxes, probably shrink wrapped, and they'd be sitting all over this area right here and would get assembled. So let's just say that this riser closet took 100 widgets. Well, did them pallets of boxes come with 100 widgets? No, they probably came with 300, 400, 500 widgets. And the certain trade would pull them out just what they need to make this riser. And then the rest of them would lay there. Would they reshrink the boxes? Probably not. Oh, by the way, it rains here in the PNW, so depending on where they're located, boxes get wet, material falls out. We've all seen it. So this particular process is called subassembly. And it's done in a organized, controlled shop. And where they have all the right tools, all the right equipment. And then it comes out in this sub-assembled pattern. Oh, by the way, it's on wheels right here. Come out, Tommy lift comes down, rolls out and goes right to the restroom where it needs to get installed. Plug and play. The last one here is, I want to go back to kitting again. So this is an example of one of our projects where we had just hundreds and thousands of steps and risers, and each of them was a different type. So they took these totes on wheels, they kitted out different types. So if they want a type A, they'd grab this tote, go to the work area, form it, place it, clean it, and put it back in ready for the next use. All right, cord management. This is not cord management. This is a cord laying on the ground. This is the main walkway and access area that people have to get to. And oh, by the way, this is a cord tree stand that's supposed to support that cord off the ground. Not working. So that is not cord management. There is certain ways you can manage cords, and here's these tree stands in effect, or you can get S hooks and hang them. And I get it. We can't always have all of our cords up and down. So if we do have to do some traversing over cords, there's means and methods of getting over the cords. So here's the deal. So back in the day, when I was a carpenter tender, my tools weren't battery operated, so I had to lay out cords for everything. And at the end of the day, I had to pick those cords up. And if I didn't, it wasn't a good day. Somewhere along that line in our industry, we said it's okay to roll our cords out and not pick them up. Problem. And so we encourage, whenever we can, and today it's pretty prevalent, that a lot of our small tools that we use are battery operated. So we don't need a lot of cords to operate our tools. So here's an idea that we're trying to implement here. So from Canada to Mexico, every 300 to 400 miles, there's going to be these charging stations for all these electric cars that are going to hit the market. Well, what if in certain phases, and I get it, we can't do it in every phase, in certain phases of the project, we have charging stations for batteries. Every other floor, every floor, certain zones, whatever. At the end of the day, everybody brings their batteries to this certain locale, puts them in, plugs them in. Now I'm just running maybe a cord to a charging station, and I'm minimizing my need for cord management. So I'm about halfway through. The next one will go pretty quick. Anything you heard so far that's impossible to do? All right. So clear walkways and accesses. So we have to get people to and from. We have to get equipment to and from. So it's very important that we maintain clear walkways and access areas to create efficiency travel of material and craft members. So looking at both exterior and interior and maintaining those clear walkways and access areas. Now, what I tell our team members is that, hey, if you go into a work area and your scope of work jeopardizes the walkway and access area, then I want you to work together with who's ever working in that area and establish new walkways and access areas. You're all team members now, so talk. Don't booger up the walkway and access area if you can establish a new one because you have to work in the old one. Organized workspaces. On the left is not an organized workspace. It's just a bunch of material. Oh yeah, they got a wheelbarrow with trash in it, but you can see where that's going. Extra material. Oh, they got a cut station, but they're not really using it. So we had a coaching moment here. And we said, this is not acceptable. So what needs to be there? What doesn't need to be there? What's our waste management program? And at the end of the day, as we proceeded, this became looking more like this. And that's what we mean by organized workspaces. Picture on the left, most people would walk by and say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, remember, we got no space, no place, no time, no money. But yet we can open up all these cementitious bags and maybe use half the product and the other products falls out on the ground. These are worth tens and hundreds of dollars a bag, right? So I brought the foreman over and I said, okay, this is no longer acceptable. What do we got to do? I said, go in and let's do some crunch time here and do some coaching moments. Let's figure out what we can do. So we did, came back later. This now is this. All that material stored correctly, put in correctly, in totes. Now they can just wheel it out and away we go. Simple, but effective. Just have to think just a little bit different. This is a good one. So I walked by this guy for a couple of days and he just kept doing it day in and day out. So I said, okay, what's going on here? So I walked over to him and I said, what do you need? He said, not Boston. I got 3 sawhorses. I'd be good to go. And this is one of our trade partners. So I got him 3 sawhorses, but I knew that still wasn't the answer. So I brought the foreman and the superintendent over and I said, what are we doing here? He says, well, we're getting these 16-foot pieces of raw steel and we're cutting them into 16-inch pieces. I said, oh, really? Oh, and by the way, to cut these pieces, he's using a peanut grinder day in and day out. You ever go down and buy a blade for a peanut grinder to cut metal? They're pretty damn expensive. He was going through, I don't know how many of those a day. So and not only that, but now he's got a cord, which is on the ground, so it's not cord management. Our program calls for a hot work permit because he's creating sparks. So I brought the superintendent over and the foreman, and I said, so why didn't you, and go back to kitting or subassemble? I said, why didn't you have this, why didn't you have this done in your shop? You know what he told me? He says, oh, I didn't think of that. And I get it. We don't think of that. You know, as leaders, we have to remove burden from our team members, not add it. And in that shop, I know this certain trade partner, they've got laser cutters and they got plasma cutters and they got everything. Then all you got to do is put your kitted material in a tote, bring it out, roll it, and it goes right to the area. Later on, this gentleman came to me and he said, boss, he said, you know, he says, I got 3 kids. And he said, when I go home at night, my back is sore. And all them kids want to do is play. And I can't play. He says, I'm tired, I'm sore. So when we talk about impressively clean, when we talk about taking burden off our team members, this is about family and about creating a better morale for our workforce and our team members to do their job. Same thing. This is now just organized a little different. Oh, by the way, we did do one thing. I bought 2 carts. Home Depot, I don't know where they are, $100, whatever. So here's the deal. This bucket right here is a bucket of liquid. Weighs about, I don't know, liquid weighs about 7.4 pounds per gallon. 5-gallon bucket, 35, 40 pounds, whatever the case may be. This individual was picking these buckets up every day, throwing them over his shoulder and walking to the hoist. And I said, what do you need? And I knew what he needed. And he said, I need a cart. I said, okay, I'll get you 2 carts. That individual now takes that bucket, straps it on that cart, and whistles Dixie all the way to the hoist. Had we continued to do this, absolutely would have been some type of repetitive injury, shoulder, knees, whatever the case would have been. Work area readiness. It's not above anybody to pick up a broom and shovel. This is a senior superintendent cleaning up a work area. This is a work area, the backing just got completed, getting ready for the next trade. Clean and organized, same thing with this. So here's what I tell people, and this is probably the hardest one yet, is I tell trade partners, if you're scheduled to go into a work area and it doesn't meet your condition of satisfaction, meaning the area is not clean, there's extra material in there that doesn't need to be in there, and you can't do your job efficiently, safe, and good quality, don't go in there. I want you to come back. I want you to get your former superintendent, grab one of our area superintendents and say, I'm not going in there. Because if you go in there, you just bought the farm. And I'll guarantee you, that's happened only 1 or 2 times. And these areas are clean and they're organized and they're ready to go. Work area readiness. The other thing we do when a trade partner gets ready to leave, we take a walk. In this particular instance, had we not did this walk with this certain trade partner, I'll guarantee you they would have left and none of these areas would have gotten cleaned up. We took a walk, we identified some areas, came in, cleaned it all up, not a problem, good to go. So do your final walks with your trade partners to make sure all those areas are cleaned up, excess material removed, and ready for the next scope of work. So the last one, expectations and accountability. So like I said earlier, we can't hold people accountable if we don't lay out what we expect. This is a particular trade partner of ours, it's PCI. They have taped on their gang boxes a cut station. So if they're going to be cutting any metal or studs or anything like that, they have to set up this cut station. And got to have the tippler, got to have the correct chop saw in a hot box, fire extinguisher, no trash hits the ground. This is what they expect from their teams when they go set up a cut station. So just the last couple slides here, what good looks like. Got to paint that picture. That's all you got to do. So I saw a lot of stuff come through. I'm sorry wasn't able to see exactly what everything is, but open up to any questions if we have time.
Hey, Lyle, this is Dan. Appreciate the presentation there.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. By the way, nice job out there, Kaiser. Do you have any stats that show, if you will, safety statistics for injuries or
Well,
other
how about
factors
if I tell you, Dan, that and I'm not superstitious, so I'm not going to knock on wood or anything, but Kaiser just went we're well over a year with 0 injuries.
Excellent.
We've had 4 first aids.
Fantastic.
Minor. So I think that speaks for itself. And you know, I know we're tying this to safety, but really, you know, safety is a byproduct of a lot of things. And so this helps crack the nut with workflow, trade stacking. Are we there? Hell no. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Nice work, Lyle.
Additional questions for Lyle. Lyle, we appreciate this presentation very much.
The question on, yes, that's both Mortenson and trade partners.
So
Folks,
Lyle,
any additional questions?
yeah, I have a question for Lyle. Hi, Lyle.
I may not have an answer.
Yeah, sure you do. So what do you do, your trade partners, on the front end with your contracts?
So we have an exhibit, an addendum that we add to our contracts that explains this whole program I just laid out to you, Keith. It has our 5S, our absolutes, and bullet points, and then that is in the contract. So when the question comes up about what I just explained, it's pretty easy to go back and show them the language. The hard part is you know, the day-to-day operations of implementing it. So, but yes, we do get that up front. We buy that out.
So you cover that in the pre-cons, I imagine.
Yes, so we do a 3-phase step there, as you well know. We do our pre-con. That's followed up 2 weeks prior to any work with a prep meeting. And then every Tuesday, we have, in addition to our first day, first hour, we have an impressively clean 5S training. And you can see behind me some of the stuff that we use here.
Thanks, Lyle.
You're welcome.
Let's catch
Folks,
up.
additional questions?